there was a shimmer from the sun, and it was like a spider web. When you walk through the forest and the spider web, yeah. So it was like that, just right over the corner of my shoulder, and realizing that there's a troop IED literally 2 feet away from me and right over my shoulder. And I turned around and said, "Don't move." And they saw the look on my face and they didn't question it. Just the idea that if my saw gunner had gone left, Alpha Team probably would have been gone.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. On today's Combat Story, we have a deep dive into intense fighting that took place in Afghanistan in the treacherous Arghandab River Valley with Andrew Bragg, former Army infantryman who served back-to-back tours to 2 distinct places in Afghanistan, but both with plenty of kinetic activity. Andrew's book and the majority of this podcast center around the Devil's Playground, which is one of his deployments with the 82nd Airborne to the Arghandab River Valley, where his unit experienced 50% casualties, including 6 KIA. Andrew traveled the country in his car to interview members of his unit from 12 years prior, many of whom had not seen each other since their time fighting alongside one another. Their common bond was the impact that the valley had on each of them. I think you're going to really enjoy this recounting of some incredibly challenging fighting experienced by just one of several units to survive the DAB, as they called it, with Andrew Bragg. Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time to share your story with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For those who are listening, can't see, you got a great backdrop. You got the U.S. flag behind you, and you've got a good copy of your book, The Devil's Playground, in the foreground here. So for people who can't see it, that's what we're looking at. And I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Devil's Playground. This is your account of yourself and the people you served with during a particular year in Afghanistan. So we'll spend a lot of time there. I just wanted to kick it off. Obviously, you have what seems to be quite a famous name with Bragg as your last name. Any relationship to the military lineage there?
I mean, I don't have any proof of it, but I got that a lot being stationed at Fort Bragg. I'd always, when it was to my advantage, yes, I did have lineage, but when it wasn't, I don't claim it.
Did they give you like an extra parking spot at Bragg, I would hope, at the time? No, nothing?
No, not at all. I did get to tell the sergeant majors to get off my grass, but that's about it.
I love it. That is great. And then you mentioned, and Andrew, we can cut this part out if you don't feel comfortable, but you just mentioned as we got started on this journey of writing the book has been quite challenging, and where you find yourself living right now. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about that.
As part of this whole journey, like I had to travel a lot to, reunite with the guys. And the best way to do that was to just hoof it, so I decided to live out of my truck for the last couple of years, or I guess the last year and a half now, and travel the country to reunite with the guys of 2 Charlie to see kind of, we'll get into it soon, but the lives they've created for themselves since I last saw them. It was 12 years since we spoke. I mean, we Facebook stalk each other, but that's about the most interaction we've had. Yeah, just to see the men they've become and to see their wives, their children, the lives they've created. It was super powerful. But yeah, I took it on myself to really commit to this and travel the country, interview these guys, get our story right, and I then write it down. So
love it. And I mean, we're going to get into this, but I think from the account that I saw, like 50% casualties, six people you lost.
Yeah, from our platoon alone, we took 6 KIA and 14 wounded, and it wasn't like, I sprained my ankle wounded. It was like, missing limbs wounded, amputations, gunshot wounds. Yeah, so it was a pretty heavy fight in the Argandab River Valley during the 2009-2010 deployment.
Wow. I truly can't wait to hear just about what it was like reuniting with folks. And maybe just before we jump into that, I'd be curious, where did you grow up, Andrew? Are you like Northwest guy? Or where are you from? What was your childhood like?
So I grew up in Ohio, a town called Hilliard, Ohio, just west of Columbus. Corn and soybeans. That was my upbringing. So it's actually pretty crazy. One of the guys that was in Two Charlie with me, he grew up in Hilliard, Ohio as well, and we just lived down the road from each other, and we had
No
no idea.
way.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts learning that about each other when we were over there. But yeah, I grew up in Hilliard, Ohio. I joined the army right out of high school. I was a patriotic kid, and I didn't just want to serve my country. I wanted to fight for it. So I joined the infantry. I went through airborne school. I went through RIP. Didn't make it through RIP. I didn't pass my history test. I don't know what that's about, but so I got sent to the 173rd, and I was with the first of the 503rd with them, and deployed for a 15-month deployment to Paktika province with the 173rd. That's a story in its own. That was the Restrepo era. That was 2nd Battalion, but we were just south of them. So similar fighting, similar experience and stuff. But then got back, PCS'd to Fort Bragg and became part of the 82nd and went right back to it and deployed with them for a 12-month deployment to the Arghandab River Valley, which is what this book is about. So
All right, so we'll jump in here in just a second into some of that fighting, but I guess I did want to ask, what was it that made you join the service to begin with?
I was an 18-year-old kid, super patriotic. I mean, you see all the war movies and stuff. You're like, oh, I want to go do that. But really, I mean, it's just a couple days ago, we had our anniversary of 9/11, and that really solidified it for me that day. I remember where I was. I was an eighth grader in art class, and our teacher turned on the television, and I remember watching the second plane hit the second tower live. And kind of from that day on, I just knew that that's what I was going to do. I wanted to serve my country. So yeah, that's why I joined.
As you mentioned, this book that you've kind of painstakingly pulled together. I don't, I've interviewed a lot of guys who have written books now, and I don't think all of them do go and interview the folks who they fought with. It's more of like their account.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what that was like. I do this all the time. I interview vets like yourself, but we didn't fight together necessarily, and I can only imagine how moving that must be a decade removed.
Yeah, it's nothing has been more powerful than that, time of my life. So initially, when had the idea to write the book, I mean, there's been some hesitation in the past. Like journalists have approached us and stuff, and the guys, the scabs are still pretty raw. So, we've been hesitant in the past, but I think it was because one of us decided that we wanted to do it, that guys were all in. So, I mean, I got as many guys as I could on Facebook and just sent like a huge group message and was like, "Hey guys, like, what do you think about us telling this story?" There was another book that came out, Bravo Company, by Ben Kessling. I don't know if I can give him a plug for that, but I think that lit a fire under his book, which was really well done. It lit a fire under a lot of our asses. He told the story about Bravo Company, and that kind of let the cat out of the bag because then you had another guy from Bravo Company, William Yeski. He wanted to write a book as well, so he wrote his book, Damn the Valley. And there's just been a snowball effect of these stories. Now I've talked with the 101st guys that replaced us, and they too are publishing a book. So you'll get a sequel of The Devil's Playground here probably next year. Alpha Company as well. Like it's about getting our story out there. For 12 years, we ran away from the valley. We didn't want to think about it. We didn't want to have anything to do with about it. Most guys, well, I wouldn't say most, a lot of guys ETS'd. They got out of the army. A lot of us were stop loss. So as soon as we got back from that deployment, we were out of there. Some guys, PCS to different duty stations. Other guys got sent to different companies. So like we kind of scattered like roaches in the sun. We hadn't seen each other for 12 years. It's just you kind of ran away from thinking about that, but it enveloped every single aspect of our lives, no matter how hard we tried to hide it. But to do this right, like I couldn't just tell my story. I had to tell our story. So I made it pretty adamant that, like, I was gonna involve the guys along the whole process, and the first step was interviewing them. I could have done it over Zoom, or something like that. I could have done it, over phone call, but part of me wanted to use it as an excuse just to talk with the guys and see them
Yeah.
and see how they were doing and stuff. But yeah, so I decided to hit the road and mapped out my route around the country where all these guys were, as I was doing so. Like Nollinger, one of the guys, and two Charlie, was sending me more addresses and more phone numbers for guys, getting me in touch with other guys. And I'm like, all right, like I'm in Texas, might as well. Or it's like, all right, like I guess I can drive back to Tennessee. So my route around the country was kind of all over there. It kind of mimicked my routes in the valley, but yeah. So it wasn't like I just showed up to their front door and was like, slapped down the recording equipment.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let's do this. I kind of feeled them out. Like I said, I saw what kind of support system they had, their families, their kids. I saw, like where they were in their lives, and kind of felt it out before I tried to, fan some air on some coals that might still be smoldering.
For sure.
Because yeah, we went into some details about specific events that haunt us still kind of to this day. So yeah, I traveled the country,
Right.
recorded our interviews, and then I wrote the book.
How, I mean, you write it in the third person perspective, right? So it's not like I did this, I did this. It's like, Sergeant Bragg was doing this event. Like,
It's third person omniscient, right? So you can get in the heads of any of these guys, So while doing these interviews, I kind of plotted, I had an outline for the chapters and stuff, but I listened to, like, I had over 30 interviews. So usually every chapter, I would just sit there and listen to kind of the interviews, that part of the interview, and take notes on what guys said and stuff, and kind of decide on who I really wanted to be in the spotlight, right? Trying to develop characters, and I had a lot of guys, and I wanted at least, everybody's name to be mentioned. I had characters that, people could follow, like not really quite main characters. The main character is really two Charlie, but I did have characters that had a spotlight here and there.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was kind of like a juggling act and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know. I've been told I did a good job, but I don't know. It could be chaos. I don't
And
know.
we're recording before it's technically come out. Obviously,
Yeah.
I got a chance to read a little bit of it, but by the time certain people see this, it's probably been out by now. So,
Yeah.
okay. Let's, if we can, I also wanted to talk a little bit about your time with the 173rd. I know we're going to spend a lot of time with 2 Charlie, but
Yep.
your first deployment probably sets a bar for what to expect. A 15-monther is no joke. And what
Yeah.
year were you over there?
2007 to 2008. So,
Dang.
yeah, back to back, man. Like
Wow.
most of my military career was spent in Afghanistan.
So yeah, wait, what, and now I'm curious because I got to coast, I was based out of Salerno in like early January 2008,
Yep.
and we were supporting all kinds of units, and we would cover Paktika. We were the only Apaches in town at the
Do you
time.
know Burmel? Bob
Yeah,
Burmel.
yeah.
So our company was kind of based out of there, and we built a cop out east of us in the mountains, damn near the Pakistan border. So that was, I believe, a Malik Shea cop. It's been a long time, but
When did you rip out of there?
so we got out of there June. No, July. It was July of 2008.
Wow.
So yeah, because I remember our 4th of July that night, we had some guys emplacing an ID on the road, and we had an A-10 come in and just gun run them, and that was like our 4th of July fireworks. But that's the only reason I remember it was July, not June. But yeah, so we deployed. I think it was either March or May of 2007, and then yeah, we ripped out of there in July of 2008.
Unreal. So. Yeah, and not an easy place to be, but certainly not as
Yeah,
tough as what you're about to describe.
The difference between fighting between my first deployment and my second deployment, because I got to experience a lot of combat in both. Unfortunately, some might see that as fortunate, but yeah. But so the different like fighting techniques was pretty wild. Like first deployment with the 173rd, it was kind of like mountaintop to mountaintop, but like they had a lot of guys, right? Like I remember in June we were in like a ambush that was like the ambush line was over a kilometer long, and they had 150 guys that were coming over the Pakistan border. They were speaking 7 different languages over the ICOM radios. Like it was big. Yeah. So I mean, the direct fire contact was super intense, but like you had the freedom of movement. Yeah, we hit IEDs here and there, but like it wasn't like the Arghandab River Valley where it was just littered with mines and IEDs, and like you had to watch every step you took, even in a firefight. So it was definitely different. That and the fighting size shrank a little bit. I think in the valley, I don't think they had hundreds of men in there. It was more, I think, like I don't know, I can't confirm, but I think it was like more like a platoon size element, or maybe a little bit more. But uh, definitely wasn't like 150 dudes on a mountain.
Oh, jeez. So that for that first deployment, what was your kind of role at that time? What rank were you? Where were you at in your career?
That was when I was a Joe. So I was private first class, and I think I got out of there as a specialist. As a Joe, that's like really your like time to be like a sponge, absorb all information and all knowledge, because after you do your time as a Joe, then you're kind of thrusted into a leadership role as like a team leader. You get your stripes and you become a sergeant, and you're in charge of guys. As a Joe, you're doing the shooting, you're doing the grunt work, but as a team leader, you're not really shooting. You're kind of directing your guys' fire and stuff like that, and maneuvering your team. So I had my time with the 240 machine gun and the 50 cal and all that during my first deployment, and I shined quite well. But yeah, so the second deployment where I was more in the team leader role, I still was under fire and all that, but my attention was more directed towards my team as individual like sector to fire and all that. So
For that first deployment, what are one or two of the more formative missions that you went on that kind of helped shape that team leader you become?
I'd say that big ambush, the I think it was June 21st. Don't quote me on that, but that like over a kilometer long kill zone with like 150 guys, like that one, that was after an operation. I can't remember exactly whose AO we were in, but we were assisting combat engineers and a different company with building another combat outpost out in the mountains. So we had spent like a week out there. They had mortared us during that time. We got into, I mean, a lot of rockets. They used a lot of 107 rockets and just kind of lobbed those in. But yeah, we got mortared off of a hilltop. We set up an OP to try to push them back so that they couldn't get, clear line of sight on, the outpost that we were building. But, then they saw us on the mountaintop. So they started mortaring us, and we got mortared off of a mountaintop during that time. But there was like one road in and out of that outpost. And that's what really sucked, because when we all exfilled from that operation, they were waiting for us. Thankfully, they didn't have an IED, but they did have a lot of RPGs, and they were able to disable one of our vehicles, and we had to like abandon it because it caught on fire, and had to evac the guys from that and stuff. So, oh man, I think I went black on ammo with the 240 gun that day. I think I melted a barrel as well. I know I've melted a barrel with the 50 cal in a firefight. But yeah, I kind of shined with the machine guns. My squad leader put me as the lead truck 50 cal machine gun during all of our mounted patrols. And ever since there was this one ambush that we were in, my truck alone got isolated from the rest of the platoon because truck two, like I don't know, they high centered on something. So the rest of the patrol, was waiting. So we pushed up to the top of this hillside and to just provide overwatch while they unfucked themselves. And
Yeah.
well, we pushed right up on an enemy unit, and my truck was the only truck in that ambush. And thank God I had the 50 cal, because I was able to quickly gain fire superiority amongst that enemy unit. And that's another memorable day.
Just a quick word from our sponsor, Mint Mobile, and we'll get right back to this combat story. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. As I mentioned before, I re-upped my plan with Mint Mobile, and there were no hidden charges or gotchas. I don't all of a sudden see some extra charge I wasn't expecting, and here are some of the things I find important. First off, Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. I can use my own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring my phone number along with all my existing contacts, which is great. Plus, all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/combat story. That's mintmobile.com/combat story. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/combat story. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And now, back to this combat story. Did you grow up shooting?
No, I played paintball when I was a kid in high school and stuff, but like I've never fired a gun before the army. Not a real gun, just the gas powered guns. You play like as a kid, like a little kid, you play with sticks, play World War II and stuff, But
Yep.
I never fired a firearm before the army.
But it sounds like you figured it out quick.
Oh yeah, I'm a quick learner.
Did you lose anybody in that first deployment?
We had casualties, but thank God we didn't have any KIAs. So we did have a couple casualties. Nothing major, it's like shrapnel wounds. I say nothing major, but to those guys, it's probably pretty major,
Yeah.
But after experiencing like triple amputations and stuff like that, I consider it not major, but it's life altering for them. So I apologize if that
No.
statement, but yeah, we did take a couple casualties, throughout that whole deployment. But we were pretty fortunate. We got really lucky with that indirect fire at our outpost because you're just a sitting duck, like you can't move. You're defending that position, So it's like you're just having mortar rounds come in, and you all you can do is try to figure out their point of origin and shoot back. So yeah, we were pretty fortunate that first deployment compared to the second one, where just shit hit the fan pretty quick.
Especially the way you described that second one. I'm curious, as you came back from the first, was it a positive homecoming? Like, hey, we made it through, nobody died. This is exciting. Like, you probably had no idea that you were about to embark on this next experience.
Yeah, I mean, coming back, I didn't get to come back to the States initially because the 173rd stationed in Italy. So we got to fly back to Italy, which was good because we were out of Afghanistan, but it still kind of sucked because you weren't like home,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we spent like, I don't know, about a month there before we were allowed to, go back to the States on R&R. But yeah, it was like a rite of passage, right? Like you had been to combat and you had seen combat and you had fired your rifle at people while they were firing it back at you. So, I mean, it was kind of like I don't know if a badge of honor is a good way of putting it, but like, yeah, I did walk around a little taller. I'm 5'7", so I'm not very tall to begin with. So, you did feel a little taller. You did feel a little prouder. It's like, oh yeah, like it's like you see those movies. I did that. But as I walked into the second deployment, I had gotten my sense of combat. Just I would be just fine if the second deployment was like I never fired my rifle once. The Joes that were with me, and stuff like that, and with us, like they were different. They wanted that taste. They wanted to pop their cherries and stuff. So you can see the youth in them, and reflect back to when you were like that. And it's smile. But it's like, man, be careful what you wish for, and we got it.
So let's set the context for this fight, right? So this is you, new unit, and you're going into the Arghandab River Valley. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, the Argandab. Yeah, we so we equated it to like Vietnam. So like how the Vietnam soldiers, shortened Vietnam to Nam, we started calling it the Dob. So so if you want to call it the Dob, I'll know what
All
you're
right.
talking about.
Nice. So how much do you know about this area, like going into it at the time?
So at the time, we didn't know much. We had, reports from the unit that we were replacing about how bad it was and stuff. We replaced the striker unit, the second ID guys that were already there, and they had spent, I don't know how long their period of time was in the valley, but they had taken heavy casualties. They've encountered IEDs that split their strikers in half. Like they had an event in the village of Babur that like they couldn't find people. Like that's like, so we went in and yeah, I can get into that, but like like as for like historical wise, like we didn't know a lot, like
Yeah.
the internet was, we kind of had the internet at Mason-Gar when we were attached to the Canadian force before we moved into the valley, but there wasn't a lot of material out yet. And there really wasn't a lot until recently. But like historically that valley has been fought in like, oh, man, I every
Yeah.
single
Let's give an
country's probably,
idea.
yeah, every single country that's probably invaded Afghanistan has probably fought in the Arghandab River Valley. Don't quote me on it, but like Alexander the Great, I think he was there. The British, but the Russians, in the 80s, they had a huge offensive in the Arghandab River Valley in 1982. I think it was called the Fight for the Arghandab, but they were defeated then, and then they came back in 1987 with a huge, and again another huge offensive. They brought everything they could to the valley, and it was a bloody battle. There's a book out called "The Other Side of the Mountain: The Mujahideen's Tactics in the Soviet-Afghan War," and they talk a lot about the Arghandab River Valley. They talk about Commander Akhtar Khan. I probably butchered that name. The commander of the fighters at that time. And they fought in a lot of the same villages that we fought in, and they used a lot of the same tactics that we experienced with the Soviets. So it was just copy and paste. So like they fought in the village of Babur, and they even have accounts of like medevacing their wounded to the village of Babur. We fought in the village of Babur. It was spooky reading some of this literature and like being like, I've been there. I know exactly what canal they're talking about. Like they drew the same lines in the sand with the Soviets as they did with us, and like the same tactics as well. There's a quote from that book that says, "Let the enemy get closer than 10 meters to us before opening fire. We let them get this close for two reasons. First, we wanted to be sure to get them with the first shot. Second, we wanted to prevent them from escape. We laid thousands of PMN mines in the area, particularly on the infantry approach from Jelawar." Jelawar was literally just west of us. Like I could throw a rock at Jelawar. We were taking those same approaches as these Soviets were, during the 80s. I mean, now it's spooky. Back then we didn't know, but yeah, like they baited the Russians into ambushes just like they did us, and the valley has been historically known to be littered with IEDs, and that's kind of what that's not kind of, that is what we experienced, and we can get into that kind of later. But I want to talk about like the terrain, because like in order to understand how they fought, you got to understand what that's like, being in the valley, because it's not the mountains of Paktika province. It's a completely different world. There's a reason why we called it the Dab, like they called it Nam, is because we equated it to Vietnam. The vegetation of the valley was so thick. It consisted of pomegranate orchards and grape fields. That was like their main export out of Afghanistan, was pomegranate and grapes. Grapes, like they make wine, but they can't drink it. I don't know. I don't get that. But a majority of all that came from the Argandab River Valley, and I mean, it's a grape field isn't kind of like a grape field like you'd see in like Napa, California. It, instead of like having rows of trees that are like like tied to stakes or whatever, or not trees, but vines, grapevines that grow up stakes or something. Imagine like every 5 feet you have a 3 foot mud wall, and the vines grow up those mud walls. So you just have, it's like a labyrinth of mud walls throughout the grape fields, the pomegranate orchards, stuff like that. The pomegranate orchards were just rows upon rows of just thick canopy pomegranates and stuff. So they'd flood their fields and stuff. And like there was an intricate canal system that branched off the Arghandab River so that they could, water all their crops and everything like that. So that's kind of like the battlefield that we were in. The grape fields were great to fight from because you had cover and concealment every 5 feet. You had a 3 foot mud wall, with grape vines growing up it, but it's also a double edged sword because that was very easy to hide IEDs in. And they hid their IEDs in the walls, on the paths, on the roads, just everywhere in the fields. Like they were literally everywhere. So the tactics that we started to see initially when we got into the valley, because we didn't get there till December. Initially, we were attached to the Canadian forces. Our battalion was we didn't have an AO of our own. We were scattered across the southern region of Afghanistan as like attachments. We didn't really have a home of our own. So we got attached, our platoon, 2 Charlie got attached to the Canadian forces out of Cop Masamgar, is either FOB or Cop Masamgar. But it was basically where the Canadian tank forces were, like operating out of in the Panjwai district.
Yeah.
So all our Joes got their cherries popped in Panjwai. We had some firefights there and stuff. Nothing like super intense, but enough to, get your feet wet.
Probably the best kind in that case.
Yeah. We took our first 2 KIA in Panjwai district. We hit a catastrophic IED we hit it with a Humvee. It was meant for a tank, obviously, because it blew the Humvee in half. I don't know if you were able to see any of those photos that I sent you, but
yeah, we'll try to put those up on the screen as you're talking about this.
Gotcha. The entire front half of the Humvee was just gone. Well, it was just all over, really. That's actually how my book kind of starts, is November 22nd and that day.
How long had you been in country by then, Andrew?
So we got there, our Advon guys left in like August. Our main force was in September. So we had been there 3 months, maybe 2.5, But yeah, a lot of military books start out with, like training beforehand, like getting ready for deployment. And, it's like, that's good and all, like you hear all the Navy SEAL books always start with buds, to, talk about how hard it is. And, I wanted to start our book differently. I wanted to just throw the reader right into it. So I kind of throw them in a little chaotic first chapter of November 22nd, but kind of sets the tone for the book. And then I get into more character development and stuff in the following chapters. But that's how I wanted to start our story, was that day. Because after that day, we were a different platoon. You kind of realize your mortality. You're not invincible. You're not, the untouchable super, soldiers that you think you are. You've been unscathed until this point, in every fight, and then you get smacked like that. So yeah, after that day, we shortly received information that we were going to receive our own AO, and our battalion was moving to the Argandab River Valley. So literally that next month, we were, making our way to Cop Tynes in the Argandab. So,
and you knew you had another 8 months to go.
Oh, more than that. We had another 10, I think. Yeah, because we didn't get out of there till September. So yeah, probably like nine or 10. Yeah. So
real quick, Andrew. So you mentioned that the platoon's not the same afterwards. For people who haven't been through something like that, I mean, you had been through combat already, but not everybody had. You lose 2 people. What is it like the day after that?
Oh man, when it hits you, and I've seen more men cry during like our time, not to say that, there's anything like, or that we're less of men because of that, but that first one definitely sits you down, and you're just kind of like, you don't believe it at first, it's like, there's no way, like you said, we're untouchable, we're 82nd Airborne, like,
Yep.
It doesn't matter how much training you do to prepare for casualties or to prepare for anything, when it happens, it's like, it's a pucker moment. And then the after effect, when you're able to actually kind of sit and take in everything that happened. Yeah, it's it sucks. It's but you can't, like, there's a time to grieve, and we had a time to grieve, but then you have to lace up the boots and you have to get back out there, right? And unfortunately for this deployment, that time came again and again and again. And um it's sad to say, but as we lost more and more guys, it just became like more and more the normal. And it was, like, wasn't when, or it wasn't if it was going to happen, it was when it was going to
Yeah.
happen. And it wasn't if it was going to happen to you, it was kind of when it was going to happen to you. Guys, like by the last, boots and rifle ceremony, I don't know if we cried, just because we were just so used to it. And that's not that we didn't love that individual any less, but it's just, it became like you almost lose kind of like a hope, a sense of
Yeah.
hope, um but yeah, and that's what I kind of tried to articulate with the book, is, as it got, like, we went through kind of phases. Our first KIAs was our loss of innocence, right? That we are not invincible. Our second KIA, you know who it happened to, um that was a big, like, wake up of, like, it could happen to anybody, like, oh my god, it happened to him, it could happen to any of us then. And then like our next KIA was like, just like just like a loss of, like, hope, because it was like one of the sweetest guys in the platoon. He was a hell of a fighter, but he also was just, not a not a uh I don't know how to say it, like a, a grunt. I mean, he was, but he was a very sweet individual. And when, the valley took him from us, it was like, man, if they take the best of us, then there's no chance that I'm getting out. And then they, just took another and another, and it's like, man, like, when is my turn? But I think that what kept us going was the guys beside you, right? So you knew you weren't going to make it, but you were going to make sure that they did. The guy next to you did. So we'd strap up our boots and, put on our gear and be like, all right, man, like, well, like, one of us isn't coming back. So,
Oh,
like, I hope you, become, I don't know, some billionaire when you get back, and, because it ain't going to be me.
that's like the kind of morbid, almost
Yeah. Yeah.
something
It's,
you have to say to each other just to like keep going, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of morbid jokes going on. Like, we joke around about losing our legs and stuff. And, like, our mine detectors, we'd slap our boots and be like, got our mine detectors, and yeah. So it's like, we did stuff like that just to keep our own sanity. But, like, there was a time where it's like, man, like, if you would have looked at us from the outside like a fly on the wall, it's like, man, these guys, these guys that are, these guys have reached their expiration.
How different was that from that first deployment? Like the day to day, it doesn't sound like you had that same concern the
uh
first time.
I mean, it's so much different from my first deployment, from a second deployment. My first deployment, I mean, everything. It was a different commander in chief, different chain of command, different region. So there's different ROE. Like, there's just so much different that I don't really know if I can compare the two fairly, because, I mean, if I was in the same spot fighting, then yes, that'd be a fair comparison. But, like, there's just so much difference. Like, first deployment, we had, like, any air support we needed. We were dropping JDAMs. We dropped like 20 JDAMs in, like, at
Jeez.
once, like, all around us. There was no question, whether or not, we would, if someone was coming for us. Um, we always just had the assets and the support we needed. Whereas during this deployment, we were kind of on our own. We kind of operated out of Cop Tines on our own. We did our own QRFs. We did our own patrolling. We did our own cop security. And the only real air support we had was the Kiowa helicopters. On occasion, we'd have Apaches and stuff like that. On occasions, but for the most
Yeah,
part,
for
it
the
was
most part.
Kiowas. The RAO wasn't the greatest size. I think it was only really like 8 square kilometers. But when you're in 8 square kilometers of just thick, like, vegetation that you can't even see more than 50 feet in areas, you might as well be on the moon if you're four
Yeah.
kilometers away.
Thank God.
So I mean, you just felt isolated and you felt alone. And it's like, man, like, I don't know if like we're going to get, I mean, obviously like the RQRF is going to come out to us regardless. We'll run out there with like knives and
Yeah,
sticks and
you'll do
stone
whatever.
guys,
Yeah.
but like, as for like other assets and like other availability in the valley, it's like, man, I don't know. Like we might have to be fighting this one on our own. Don't get me wrong, like they were there for a lot of it and they supported us, when available and stuff like that. But just it was this feeling of like, and our FOs like were great at coordinating with the Kiowas and stuff. We did our own like baits and traps, like what the Taliban did with us, which we can get into.
Yeah.
Man, it was too Charlie. There's a reason why I wrote the book about Two Charlie and not Charlie Company. It's
Fair
because
enough.
we I felt like we were just always on our own.
Okay. So can we talk maybe just for a second about, I think you had mentioned kind of the infill,
Yep.
getting in, like set the stage with that.
Yeah, so we got in December, and our like rip was kind of quick. We went on I think one or two patrols with like the guys that we were replacing, and then they just skedaddled. They were so ready to get out of there, so we had the valley to ourselves and cop time. So we initially started building up cop times, our defenses and stuff. But patrolling the valley was kind of eerie because you had heard all these stories from the guys we relieved and from their AARs and stuff like that, and you're just like okay, like where is it? But I mean, you got to understand it's wintertime, and they're seasonal fighters,
Yep.
so
So for people
no.
listening, I mean, there typically you don't see a lot of fighting in the wintertime there, right? So you kind of
Yeah.
moving in during that
Yep.
hibernation period almost. Okay.
And it was kind of a blessing in disguise, and you'll see that with the guys who relieve us in August. They came in during the fight, the height of the fighting season, which, man, you'll learn all about their story in when their book comes out. But yeah, so we get in there and there's nothing. We're walking around the valley. We own the valley. We could see hundreds of yards. The vegetation is not there because it's wintertime. All the leaves are gone. It's kind of like a Tim Burton film. All the trees.
Yeah.
Like it was spooky. Don't get me wrong, it was spooky. It
Interesting.
felt it felt like a slumbering beast. Yeah, nothing really. I mean, we conducted multiple clearance operations in the valley, and I mean, we came up with a little stuff, like magazines and ammo, and some like HME or homemade explosive, materials and stuff, but nothing major, and definitely no actual conflict yet. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise, like I said, because we got to learn the terrain, we got to learn the villages, we got to learn like the routes, we just got to learn what should be and what shouldn't, and we also got to take that time to learn who should be and who shouldn't. So we conducted kind of like a census of the area. One of our operations, or I mean, just one of our general like objectives during missions were to talk with village elders and catalog them using like a system where we take pictures, take fingerprints, iris scans, the whole
Yeah.
thing, just so we know. And then so if we come across them in the future, we'd be like, oh yeah, like you're here, you're a local, but if we come across someone that's not, we can be like, hey, who are you,
So
like.
you had some time to kind of set the environment.
Yeah, yeah. Which was, like I said, a blessing in disguise. But yeah, it wasn't until March, April time frame where the leaves started to return to the valley that we started to get more and more conflict, and then the fighters returned to the valley.
What's the first big event that you end up finding yourself like when you notice things have changed?
There was many kind of events that kind of escalated, the fighting and stuff. And it was kind of all within like a week span. If you really like writing the book, I kind of realized, trying to figure out what happened chronologically and stuff. It's like, wow, like this stuff happened probably really, really quick, escalated really quickly. I mean, they started putting more and more IEDs in the valley at first. So initially, when the fighters weren't there, they were just kind of watching us, the people that were there, the scouts or whatever you want to call them. And they were watching how we would move, watching where we go, how we operate stuff. And sometimes they would take a couple pop shots at us just to see how we would react and stuff. But it was a game of cat and mouse because they were just watching us so that they could figure out where to put their bombs, So if like, if we take pop shots and then we conduct, battle drill 1 alpha, like, or like squad
Yeah.
attack, and try to flank and stuff, like they'd watch us. And then, the next time there'd be an IED on the flank, and so a lot of the stuff they did initially was just like a bait move. They'd shoot at us and try to get us to move in a certain direction to, step on an IED. And I was point man for my squad. We operated in squad size elements. So you have about a 9 to 14 guy element, going outside of the wire each time. And every time you left the wire, you get that radio chatter saying that oh, they're leaving now. They're heading towards this. They're heading. So we were constantly being watched. But as point man, trying to differentiate all my routes so I'm not taking similar paths or whatever. And I got made fun of a lot because I'd climb over walls, I'd climb under walls, I'd go through walls. I would just try my best not to just be unpredictable, really. But in one of my routes, I mean, this stood out to me. One of my routes, I climbed over this wall and dropped into kind of like a path along one of the grape fields, and I landed in like a drainage ditch along the path. So like it was, man, I'm short, but it made me even shorter. But I remember there's an old man to my right. I saw him and I motioned for him to stop, and then my saw gunner came down after me, down from the wall, and he went right to stop that guy and pull security on him.
Oh.
And I remember just looking down at the path and seeing this like kind of like spot of dirt that just didn't look right. It's like it's hard to distinguish, like turned up dirt because it's a farming area, it's an agricultural area, so every piece of ground is turned up, but this dirt didn't look as compact as the rest of the trail, and is literally just 2 feet in front of my face. I'm like leaning in, like, what is that? And there's like hindsight, I'm like, oh my God. like, like it's like I'm looking at this dirt on this trail and I'm like, what the heck? And I look at the wall and there's just an ant trail of like puttied, mud that had dried that looked again different than, the rest of the wall. And then I see this bush. And then the corner of my eye, there was a shimmer from the sun, and it was like a spider web, and you walk through the forest and you see like the spider web, like
like the glint.
yeah. So it was like that, just right over the corner of my shoulder, and I'm sitting there again, just not putting two and two together, like, and just looking and being like, oh my God, and realizing that there's a tripwire IED literally 2 feet away from me, and right over my shoulder, and just the idea that like if my saw gunner had gone left instead of right, like Alpha team probably would have been gone. So that was kind of an eye opener for me.
And so you didn't this you guys didn't trip this. You could stop everybody in time and kind of just back your way out.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing I did. I looked, the guys, they remember it to this day. All my guys in that team, they, like I turned around and said, "Don't fucking move." And like they saw the look on my face and they didn't question it. So I said, got them back over the wall. And we had to call in EOD assets to blow it up. And that was, for me, there's a lot of events that happened to guys, throughout that escalated. Like we had a guy, like literally 2 days after that, get shot in the face in a close ambush. And that's when the fighting kind of started to really escalate. That's when the fighters got into the valley and they were ready to go, and it wasn't just pop shots to try to bait us into IEDs. It was, they put IEDs and they wait for us to step on it, and then they would ambush us. They'd already have us in an L-shaped ambush, and they'd be like less than 50 feet away with their PKMs and RPKs, and it escalated quickly.
Can you talk us through one of those ambushes, just like with the terrain, number of guys you're going out with, what they end up setting up with? I mean, that sounds like close range for some of this.
Yeah. So I guess we could talk about the day Loveless got shot in the face, because it's Operation the day Loveless got shot in the face. That's what we call it. But like our patrols consisted of, like, we did daily patrols. Usually we did 3 a day, but like once the fighting picked up and we lost more and more guys, we couldn't, afford to do that, so we'd just do one a days. But while we were doing multiples a day, uh, we had a third squad. They left on early morning before sunrise. They pushed south to try to get along the river, and their objective was to sneak down there before any of the fighters woke up. So they, because if they could keep us north, they did. They didn't want us to push south. We come to find out because they had a HME factory in the village of Tarakalacha. We didn't know that at the time, but that's cool to find out afterwards. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so they had snuck down past the second canal and gotten south all the way to the Arghandab River. And they waited for sunrise, and then they were going to push north to try to, sneak behind these fighters and stuff. And during that time, I don't want to get into too much detail because that's one of the chapters. But
Okay.
during that, when they were coming back, because I think air went black or something, so we didn't have our Kiowa assets and we didn't have medevac assets. So that's kind of a scary time to be
Yeah.
walking around a minefield,
Knowing you're
especially.
in it.
Yeah. So they were pushing back to Cop Tines, and they got into a close ambush. And one of the guys, Loveless, there's no surprise there because it's the name of the chapter. So he got shot in the face, and so the guys of Third Squad were working on treating him under heavy enemy fire, close enemy fire, like less than 50 to 100 feet away. They're in an open field, and I was part of First Squad, so I was on the QRF for that. So as soon as we heard the gunshots, we were already throwing our gear on and running out the front gate, of Cop Tines before we even had a grid to their location. So we just busted our ass down there, and en route to that fight, we actually got into a fight as well. I don't know if we ran into the force that was fighting them as they were trying to exfil, or if we just happened to accidentally flank them or what. But we did kind of do a cool, like, almost like squad, not really squad attack, not quite platoon attack, but we did flank the enemy in that time, and then we got Kiowa's back, and yeah, we medevac Loveless, and yeah, we pushed into the orchards of Tarak Kalacha, and that's when we started to find all the HME. We ran into a shed, uh, had deck cord, AK ammo, machine gun ammo, uh, jugs upon jugs of HME, just everything they were using. So we found that, so we couldn't leave it. So we had to wait for EOD to come out to us to blow it up. And the longer we stayed in that area, the more and more stuff we found. They hid it in the trees, they hid it amongst the village of Tarakalacha and the Kalats and stuff like that. So that was what we deemed the lion's den. And we got surrounded that day and got very low on ammo. That's when like one Charlie and headquarters element like had to come out. They had to escort EOD out to us, but they hit an IED on the way out there, and then one or three Charlie tried to come get out to us, and they got ambushed. So like getting someone out to us it took all day. We were surrounded, so they were constantly probing us, from every angle. And it wasn't like a huge fight at that point, but they were definitely testing to see where we were, where our defenses were, how many guys we had. And there became a point where we ran pretty low on ammo. That was it was our Black Hawk Down moment,
Yeah.
the Mogadishu mile. Like, but I remember when we finally got EOD out to us, and like got the go ahead to go back to Cop Times. You didn't really wait around to like if you see if you get shot at again. It was just straight line, let's go.
And how about with Loveless in the end with him? Like,
He
were you able?
lived. Yeah, he lived. I don't, man, it missed every single vital in his
That's
body
amazing.
because it went through his jaw, busted out all his teeth, traveled down his neck, missed his esophagus, missed his trachea, missed his jugular, his carotid, and it came out his armpit. So it did puncture his lung, but man, talk about like, man, like I say he's lucky, but he might say not say that. Yeah,
Did
but
you talk to him during your
he was
interviews?
actually one of the guys who I did not be able to get a hold of. He's kind of AFK. Like it's I don't know where he is. Last we heard, he was on some sort of religious mission, so he was out,
Okay.
preaching. But I know he has been in contact with like Dale Nollinger, so he has reached out to Two Charlie and stuff like that. But I myself wasn't able to get a hold of Loveless.
Man. That I mean, just the ability to operate in an environment like that where around every corner there's an IED, um, enemy waiting for you.
Yeah,
Did
every
they
step, like every step, you're just like, man, I'm either gonna get shot in the face or I'm gonna lose my legs. It's there's
did
no
they
in
come
between.
after your position at all? Not you personally, but like your kind of the
Like
outpost?
Cop Tines.
Yeah.
So Cop Times was actually north, kind of. We were strategically positioned pretty well. They never directly came at us. They did attack Cop Nolan. So 1 and 3 Charlie were out of Cop Nolan, and Cop Nolan was further south, like amongst the orchards and the grape fields and stuff like that. So there's actually CNN footage that is Cop Nolan getting attacked, and every year guys repost it on Facebook and stuff because it's like, oh, this is us and stuff. But I vaguely mentioned that day where Cop Nolan got hit. Yeah, I mean, there's footage of it and stuff, but like I said, that was 1 and 3 Charlie. I didn't really want. I mean, that I want to leave it up to them to tell the story of that
Yeah.
day. You know,
Yeah.
oddly enough, that day was actually like they were on their way back from Cop Times because they came over to us for a boots and rifles ceremony. So we had just gotten completed, with a funeral basically, and they didn't even let us have a funeral. They had to hit us on the way back. So yeah,
As you've mentioned some of this, like you'll refer to it as the valley took him, not the
Y-
enemy.
yeah.
How do you think, or how do you and some of the guys you interviewed think about that enemy? Like, is it personal with them after this experience? Is it more just the terrain made it impossible to operate?
Well, so I use the term the valley because that's kind of like the term I use in the book. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a poetic way of saying, because it's the protagonist. Like I'm not the protagonist. It's not Sergeant Bragg. It's Two Charlie. Two Charlie is the protagonist, and there's not one protagonist. So to have like Mohammed Omar or something be the antagonist, it didn't seem right. So like if Two Charlie's the protagonist, then the valley is the antagonist. It's this like evil omniscient like being, and like kind of like I said, that's what it felt like when we first got there. It was like a sleeping beast, and then it woke up and it was mad that we were at its doorstep.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the approach, that like like artistic approach, if you will. I don't know what you would call it. That's the kind of the approach that I took with the book. It's kind of like the message I have at the end as well is like, even though we made it out of the valley still has its claws, dug in on us. There's a common theme throughout my book. There's only one rule in the valley. In the end, the valley always wins. I don't know if you were able to read the ending of my book and stuff. I don't want to, give it away, but that's kind of the the theme of my book, and it goes on past that deployment. We've had a guy commit suicide, and we had an attempted suicide and stuff, and the valley, no matter how much we run away, it still has a hold of us. And to put that to like one entity or like one person, like a fighter or the fighters, it's like, yeah, I guess I could, but like, I don't know. I've had that discussion with some of the guys. It's like, are you mad? Do you hate the guys we fought? And some of them, yeah, they absolutely do. But some of them, it's like we've kind of come to peace with it. It's like, you know what? Like they were just the other side of the coin, man. They were no different than us. They were fighting for their country just like we were fighting for theirs. And it's like a war, like a respect for warriors. Like
Yep.
we had every asset available, jets, Kiowa helicopters, and they were fighting us with making IEDs out of like Folgers coffee cans and stuff, and like, water jugs, filling it with HME and stuff like that. Like the ingenuity of them, is, I have to take my
Yeah.
hat
It's
off to them,
remarkable. Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's like, dang, you guys are like MacGyvers. Yeah. So it didn't feel right just saying, like the fighters, so I wanted, our enemy to be this entity of the valley.
When you finish that deployment, and I'd be curious if what the guys feel about this too, but was it a feeling of we lost here or we drew?
Uh, Honestly, like I can only speak for myself, like and how I felt. I don't know. I didn't really ask the guys like that, but our emotions at the time of getting back were so much on the fact that we survived when we didn't think we were, that we were just happy to still be alive. Right? There, it wasn't like it wasn't we won or we lost. It was we survived. Like I said, we ran away from that valley, so we didn't care what really was going on after. Or at least I didn't. I can't speak for all the other guys, but I didn't care. What was going on there after. I just didn't want to. I mean, it felt bad for the guys replacing us, but you can't just sit there and dwell on it. Otherwise, it just consumes you that much more. So yeah.
Who was your closest friend when you were there, or the closest guy to you?
So I had my good buddy Cornelius. He was one of our FOs. We'd always hang out and we'd work out at our makeshift gym. We play like we'd share videos and stuff on our computers and stuff, all the like bootleg
Yeah.
movies that were coming out and stuff, and play like whatever video games we could on our computers once we got electricity and whatnot. But yeah, then he got hurt and he got medevaced and stuff like that, and that was kind of a crazy perspective because after like the last time I saw him, I was loading him on a medevac helicopter, right? And he was actually one of the only guys I stayed in touch with within the 12 years because again we're nerds and we play Xbox, so
Yeah.
you talk to each other on like Xbox Live or whatever. But yeah, so I went and visited him, and him come visit me and stuff. So we that was like one of the only guys I really stayed in touch with. But he got pretty badly banged up, and I mean but to hear his perspective of that day, for me, I was like, you made it, dude. You got out, the valley, you got out of the valley. But, he just to hear him tell me how he was in that medevac helicopter and to watch out the window as the valley got smaller and smaller, and then to realize that he would never have to go back again. It was very powerful. And
Yeah.
then to hear him realize that we would still be there and he wouldn't. That's what eats up a lot of the guys that
Yeah.
got wounded is you know, they feel like they got get out of jail free pass, but it's like, dude, you got fucked up, man. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, but they that's a struggle that a lot of wounded soldiers deal with, is kind of like that guilt that they left too soon. But I mean, I don't. You can't harp it on them enough. Like, dude, you got
Yeah.
you earned your way out. But yeah, to hear that and stuff coming from him, that
How did he get injured?
so that was on June 7th. The day we had one KIA and two, three, four, five more. Five more wounded from an IED. So we were setting up a traffic control point at this intersection. And usually you do traffic control points with like vehicles and stuff, and you lay out C wire and stuff like that. But this was kind of like a covert one, and it was at a smaller intersection. These paths along the canals weren't really quite big. I mean, you could maybe get like a truck or I mean, like a small vehicle down there, but like we weren't getting our like MATVs down there. So we went to go set up a covert traffic control point at that intersection because we had intel that there were men with fighting rigs turning around civilian populace. So like civilian foot traffic would start walking down, the road, and then they would pop out and tell them to go the other way. So we went to go kind of investigate that and to establish like kind of like a gotcha thing. We were trying to get there before they did, and then once they showed up, we could get them. But it turned out we figured out why they were turning civilian traffic from that intersection is because they had a massive IED there, and they didn't want kids or farmers to set it off. So yeah, he got injured in that blast.
What detonated that one?
So that was a pressure plate IED. So what they did is they had a toe popper IED. The toe popper is really just meant to maim, take off a leg for sure, but it's really kind of like a below the knee amputation. But that was just the initiation device. So they did was is they wrapped det cord around that toe popper so that when whoever stepped on that det cord would be set off, and that det cord led to I don't know how many hundreds of pounds of HME buried in the ground. That was one of the tactics that they used to kind of alleviate the civilian casualties in the area. Because initially, like I was saying, a lot of civilians were, setting off IEDs. So what they would do is they'd bury the main charge, under the ground, and then they'd connect det cord to it. And then their initiation devices, like either small anti-personnel mines, pressure plates, anti-pressure plates, tripwires, things that they could, set in real quick and cover up and then leave. And then if we didn't set it off, they could go take it out, so that, a kid or a civilian didn't hit it. That became kind of like their TTPs of, at the time, so that they mitigated or minimized civilian casualties. But yeah, so our RTO, we had established our TCP and stuff, and it was just an eerie feeling that day because even the Afghan National Police that we were working with that day, like, did not want to go. They drugged their heels the whole way. They knew. They knew. This is the only time you saw those fuckers wearing their helmets. So that was a dead
This is
giveaway.
in advance, Andrew, in advance of that hit?
Yeah.
So they knew. Yeah.
They knew. Yeah. Yeah. They were even going as far as like throwing rocks kind of in the general area of where they thought it was, it's like.
And they didn't say anything to you guys?
No, our interpreter we were talking with them like, hey, like, what do you guys know? And yeah, couldn't get anything out of them. Yeah, our RTO ended up stepping on that pressure plate, and it blew his leg off and severely burned his other leg. Sent shrapnel everywhere, which Cornelius and Cromer caught shrapnel, and then it ended up killing one of my teammates.
I was struck just when I was reading the book how many references there are with the translator, obviously ICOM, like listening to that chatter that's going on.
Yeah.
How close did you end up getting to those?
The interpreters?
Locals? Yeah.
Oh man. So in the book I just leave it very vague because I want to protect their identities and stuff like that. So I just call them the interpreters and stuff, and we established nicknames for them and stuff. Like one of our interpreters was Gucci, and man, Gucci was awesome. We ended up actually giving him a weapon, which is kind of a no-no, but Gucci's been in a firefight, shooting over my shoulder.
Get out. Wow.
That's how much we trusted him. Man, if you look at Gucci though, he looks like straight Taliban. like he's got like a dead eye because like when he was a kid, he got like shot in the face by his brother with a slingshot. So like one of his eyes is like, white. He's like straight Bond villain. But man, that guy was awesome. And then we had some interpreters that were just absolute like dumb. Like I don't know if there's a language barrier between them, but like you'd ask like we had a guy named Bob. Well, we named him Bob. And you go up to a village elder and you'd be like, Bob, like, well, what's this guy's name? And Bob would just be like, I don't know, sir. I just met him. It's like, no, Bob, like ask this guy what his name is. And so he'd do it and he'd be like, oh, his name is Mohammed, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, how old is he, Bob? I don't know, sir. It's like, Bob, ask him how old he is, But he was kind of a newer interpreter, so he started to get the gist of it. But actually, he was the one that was on there that day, and he actually ended up getting medevaced as well. So not that he had any major injuries, he just it was more of a shock thing. So
wow,
yeah, that was a memorable day for sure, and that was part of the escalation of the fighting in the valley was, that day.
Yeah, as you went to interview these guys years later, what was one or two of the most or the more powerful discussions you had?
I had a lot of just eye-opening experiences because, it's like I may have been on one side of the wall, but I didn't know what was going on the other side, or the other side of the objective even, So hearing their stories and stuff like that of like what they were doing and stuff, I was like, okay, like, so that's why I heard that, or like stuff like that. But one of the most impactful things when interviewing these guys is it was actually about that day, where because that's a very impactful day for me, the 7th of June, because I lost one of my guys. You have this Hollywood perspective of, like, oh, you're going to get all your guys home, and stuff like that. And then when that is not a reality, it cuts you deep. And that's something that I struggle with even to this day. But I talked with one of the other guys there that helped me treat my guy, like medically and stuff like that. And to hear his perspective, it kind of was, I don't know how to describe it, but like I felt like I was leaning on him that day. And to hear him say that he was leaning on me that day,
Yeah,
and I was like,
man.
whoa, and like the fact that we, like we got each other through that moment, not even realizing it. And for this longest time, it's like I just thought, like he was, carrying me, but then he always thought that I was carrying him. And,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, it's like we carried each other and we got each other through that, that was an eye opener for me. But there was just a lot of, some of the things that the guides told me after, because once I got done reading the book, before I even got contacted the publisher, it was important to me for the guys to read the book and to give me the thumbs up. So I let them read my first, draft, before editing and stuff like that. The amount of times I heard like, man, I didn't even know that you guys did that, or like, like especially from the Joes, for like some of my Joes to come up, and be like, I didn't know you guys did that much for us, and to like thank
That's
you.
pretty
Like,
cool.
yeah, it was really cool. And yeah, because like, as a leader, you're molding them into becoming leaders themselves, and that's a hell of a way to do it, that deployment.
Yeah.
Like, but
Did any of them stay in, Andrew?
oh yeah, there's still
Yeah.
guys that are in. I think, well, there's one for sure. That's our old PL. He's still in. He's a major now.
Oh, nice.
And there's one guy, I believe he's still special operations. I'm not 100% sure. I wasn't able to link up with him, but we had other guys go special ops after that, get through selection and stuff. Um, but for majority of us, for the most part, we did our contract and chuck the deuces. But
And would you say for you, the valley still got its claws in you?
so this whole process was my attempt to kind of rid myself of the valley. So I had to kind of like emerge, or like, yeah, immerse myself back into the valley to do a good job of writing this book and to listen to all the guys' stories and stuff. So I'm not gonna lie, it was rough. It was
I
hard. It was a
bet.
hard time of my life, but I do feel a weight off of my shoulder. I don't feel like the valley has its claws, or at least has much of a grasp as it used to. I always say, in the end, the valley always wins. We got guys who had committed suicide. We have guys who have developed, diseases from, burn pits or, toxic exposures. We got guys with cancer, stuff like that. So in a way, like the valley will claim us all one day. But this book was kind of a way to try to finally get a win on the valley, and to overcome that and to tell our story, to tell what we did out there, and to do it with the rest of the guys. I think that was the key. If I would have
Yeah.
just sat there and wrote a book about myself, like it wouldn't have been the same
No.
thing. This is so much more than a book. It's a healing process for all these guys involved, so.
Would you recommend other guys go and reconnect like that? Not to write a book, but just to
Yeah,
do it.
there's a bunch of different organizations out there that are doing just that. I know like the Independence Fund is one. I don't know if I can plug them in this or whatever, but
Please.
they work they worked with Bravo Company to do their reunion, which is how that book first got its headway, right? One of the journalists at that reunion saw these guys and felt the need to tell their story. And once that book came out, William Yeski wrote his and he got his published. And I mean, I started writing mine right around the time he got a publishing deal and was working with a publisher. He kind of paved the road for me, with that publisher to get, publishing deal. So like, he opened the door, and me getting part of the process of me writing this book. Like I said, I wanted the guys to read it to give me their approval. Well, I also wanted the 101st guys that replaced us to kind of give me a thumbs up as well, because, I don't shine the greatest of light on them. But I had one of their guys read it, and he said everything I said is fair and did happen and is true. So, in doing that, I it kind of lit a fire under their ass, and now they wrote their book, and they went
That's
through a very
great.
similar process. And so this whole process of like these books and telling stories is bringing guys together. But like you said, you don't have to write a book. I would encourage, like now the two guys at Two Charlie, we're trying to do at least an annual reunion.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
we'll have one here in November along the book release. We'll have like a book release party. So
Nice.
our first reunion was after I'd conducted all the interviews. We ended up crashing a wedding of our platoon sergeant's son. So he was like 11 years old when we were all deployed back then. So now he's a 23, 24-year
Yeah,
old
very
man.
cool.
So he was getting married. So we crashed the wedding. We didn't ruin it, but
No,
but
no.
we had a reunion, and that was one of our major reunions. So we're trying to keep that momentum going and stuff. And Dale Nollinger's like spearheading that for Two Charlie, But there are
Right.
organizations out there, and I do recommend kind of doing that, because like guys struggling with their demons and stuff, like you can go to therapy, and if like therapy works, like great, I encourage you to do so. But I understand if it doesn't, because you go talk to some civilian therapist who doesn't know anything,
Yeah.
so then they have group sessions, so it's like if you want to go to a group sessions with other veterans or whatever, and if that works for you, great, I encourage you to do so. But I understand if it doesn't, usually those kind of become like a dick measuring contest anyways. Like I feel like the only way to fight your demons is to do it alongside the guys who you were fighting the demons with initially,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
guys who truly know the valley. That's kind of what we did as Stu Charlie, is we got the band back together and started working through these things on our own. And I mean, none of us are therapists, so it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, but I think it's a good first start,
Yeah.
Like Dale Nollinger's been helping guys with VA stuff, getting guys enrolled in the VA, getting VA claims and stuff like that. It's crazy to me that you can lose a limb to an IED and not be 100% disabled. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand that logic, So, but we've been working, getting sworn statements together, and just even urging guys to make a claim and stuff,
Yeah,
and get
for
get it
sure.
enrolled into the VA. But yeah, I do encourage it amongst other veteran groups and stuff. But honestly, like it's gonna take. I mean, like I said, I don't. Not everyone needs to write a book, but if you want to, I do encourage it, because that's a healing
It
process in its
is.
own. Like those organizations only go so far. So like I would encourage the team leaders, the squad leaders out there to you know take point again and start organizing it on your own, reaching out to your guys that you haven't talked to in decades, and seeing how they're doing, start feeling them out, seeing if they'd want to get the band back
Yeah,
together, so.
that's cool.
But it's also a slip. It's a double edged sword too, because you're also fanning some flames on some embers
Yeah.
that might still be smoldering.
So as we wrap here, Andrew, there's two questions I ask everybody at the end of these. They're
Yep.
short ones. One is if there's anything you carried with you when you were deployed that you wanted to have on you, like a good luck charm, something that somebody gave you, something like
Yeah,
that.
I did. I still have it to this day. Actually, I carried it in my pocket for a couple years after even getting out of the army. But so my first deployment, my squad leader found a 50 caliber machine gun headspace and timing gauge. So it's just like a piece of metal that you use to gauge the timing and the headspace for the barrel. Um, and he gave it to me. So that's like a serialized item, but he found one. He like acquired one somehow. So he gave me that. So I turned in my one that I assigned out, but I got to keep the one he gave me. And I kept that in my pocket throughout that whole deployment. So it didn't feel right not to have it with me that second deployment. And it wasn't like in a secure pocket either. It was just in my left pocket, like, so I was like, but yeah, so I carried that with me on every single
Would
patrol.
you just like reach down and touch it?
I mean, sometimes just to make sure it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know why. It was just like superstitious type thing, like I just wanted, I just
Yeah.
tradition,
Mm-hmm.
but
I've not
yeah,
heard that one before. That's a new one out of
yeah,
200.
I still
And
got it.
that's cool. And then the last question I ask everybody is just looking back on some pretty tough times that you've experienced and people you've lost. If you could go back, would you do it again?
Oh man, that's knowing what I know now.
I
Like,
think so. Yeah.
I mean, so like, would I be able to save those guys, or like, would I have to go through the same exact experiences?
You can take it however you want on this one,
Okay.
man. There's no right answer here.
Well, it's hard to say that I wouldn't do it all over again because it's made me who I am. And I have no idea who I'd be if it wasn't for, those guys, that deployment,
Yeah. Would you have
so
reconnected with these guys in this way? Like that was a
oh
pretty
yeah.
trying
That's
time.
that's something I did question some of the guys. It's like, man, if we hadn't taken the losses we had, do you think we'd be talking right now? And it's like, I don't know. I'd like to think so,
Yeah.
but well, I mean, we're all trauma bonded,
Yeah.
but yeah, if I had to go back and do it again, I think I would, because just to know those men that made the ultimate sacrifice. Um, they're so much a part of me now that I don't think I could give that up.
Yeah. Man. Hey, where can people find you and the book?
So you can pre-orders are available now on Amazon, or you can pre-order at Casemate at their website. I got a Facebook page with both those links. I also got an Instagram with those links as well, so you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at the Devil's Playground Book.
Oh,
But yeah, I got a lot of photos posted there. There'll be photos, and there's a photo section in the book, but I was limited to the number of photos that I
yeah.
could put in there. So every photo that I acquired throughout my journey, I put on the Facebook page just so that the other guys have access to them. And I'm slowly going through and just making posts and little videos and stuff of like video footage from our time there, because we had a lot of reporters embedded with us. So but yeah, so if you want to see photos and stuff, you go there. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
That is fantastic. Thanks so much, Andrew. This was a blast, and the book's great. The third person perspective, I think, is pretty unique, and the fact that you talk to all these guys again, like to get their stories, just adds so much credibility and authenticity to it. So well done, as tough as it was, and thanks for the time with us, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that combat story. We obviously don't often have your standard infantrymen on here talking about their time downrange. We tend to focus more on the special ops or some of the more unique elements of the military or the intel community. And I do still love having on your stereotypical, very in the weeds experience with an infantryman. So that was Andrew in a nutshell. And he's done great work bringing this story to life for this book. Just having interviewed so many vets myself, I know how hard it can be sitting down for an interview like this, and I can't imagine what it was like for him interviewing guys he had served with in some really brutal fighting. So please do go pick up the book. I think you will enjoy it if you like combat story, and obviously we only touched on a few of the stories in there, so a lot more that you can really experience. As usual, check out our newsletter, combatstory.com/newsletter. And we got a couple comments from listeners. Several Apple Podcast 5-star reviews, one from Fly Free. Great podcast. I learned something every time I listen. Snippets of recent history, the human condition. It's like reading a novel, overcoming adversity, chasing dreams, the effects of chance and fate, real emotion and personal. I really appreciate you leaving that, taking the time to write it down. Means a ton to me to hear that. Obviously, our man Carl Fisher left a great one with Randy Searles. What a career. Thanks for helping other vets. And then we got several from our interview with Max Lauker, who, as you might recall, was the Swedish special operator. First time we'd interviewed a Swede. First one from Kimmy Larson, 8496. Thank you for your service, Max, and for those of your friends who in the end paid the ultimate price, gone but never forgotten. And then Hunter Rarin 777 says, interesting story, Max. part about South America was new to me. I was part of the same organization leading up to the creation of the SOG on and off in the early 2000s and did 2 tours in Afghanistan in 2002 and a double tour to Kosovo 2003-04. Just before you came into the picture, I imagine. I left the military in 2012. Guess we know a lot of the same people. And I do hope these two end up connecting. I mean, that's pretty cool that these two would hear stories and they were in the same unit almost at the same time. And then last one was Ballistic Night. Great episode. I got selected for the Swedish Rangers in the early 90s, but then they cut military expenditures very, very hard, as Max described in our interview. A lot of regiments got closed altogether. Seeing that I was highly motivated, I got to serve with the regular Army at least, and it was a great experience. Thank you all for taking the time to listen this far. Hope you enjoyed this one with Andrew. Do check out that book. I think you're going to enjoy it. I had a chance to read it before the interview, obviously, as you could tell, and I really think he put a lot into it, and that third-person perspective is pretty cool. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, week, weekend, wherever you are, and as always, stay safe.